The galaxy had known peace for centuries, but only because fear kept everyone in line. The Krill Dominion ruled with an iron fist, their massive ships patrolling the stars like predators hunting prey. They took what they wanted: resources, technology, even people, and no one dared to stand against them. For years, humanity stayed hidden on Earth, too busy fighting among themselves to notice the wider universe. But everything changed when humans finally reached the stars. It started innocently enough. A small colony on Proxima Centauri b, one of Earth's first attempts at settling another world, thrived quietly. Farmers planted crops under alien skies, children played in red dirt fields, and scientists studied strange new ecosystems. Life was hard but hopeful. Then, without warning, the sky darkened. Ships descended from orbit, sleek and menacing, blotting out the sun. The Krill had found them. For 3 days, there was silence. No transmissions, no negotiations, just the ominous hum of engines hanging over the settlement. On the 4th day, the attack came. Lasers rained down from above, reducing homes to ash and turning fertile soil into glass. Escape pods launched into space, carrying terrified survivors, but most were shot down before they could reach safety. By the time the smoke cleared, nothing remained. The colony was gone, erased as if it had never existed. News of the massacre reached Earth quickly. Images of burning buildings and lifeless bodies shocked the planet. People gathered in streets, shouting for answers. Governments debated behind closed doors, torn between fear and fury. Some argued that humanity should stay quiet, keep its head low, and hope the Krill would leave them alone. Others believed running wasn't an option anymore. If they didn't fight back now, how long until more colonies fell? How long until Earth itself became a target? Admiral Daniel Hayes listened to these arguments with growing frustration. A tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes, he'd spent decades serving in Earth's military, watching nations squabble while the planet teetered on the brink of collapse. Now, staring at footage of the ruined colony, he felt something stir inside him, a mix of anger and resolve. He knew what needed to be done. Humanity couldn't survive by cowering in the shadows. It was time to step into the light. Hayes called an emergency meeting of Earth's leaders. Standing before them in a dimly lit room, he laid out his plan. "We've spent too long divided," he said, his voice steady but firm. "If we want to protect ourselves, we need to unite. Every nation, every resource, every person willing to fight. We bring them together under one banner, the United Earth Alliance." His words hung heavy in the air. Some nodded in agreement. Others shifted uneasily in their seats. Laura Bennett, a senator known for her fiery speeches, stood up. "And what happens if we lose?" she asked, her tone cutting through the tension. "What happens if the Krill crush us like they've crushed everyone else?" Hayes met her gaze without flinching. "Then we go down fighting," he replied. "But I don't think we will. We have something the Krill don't expect: determination. They see us as weak because we're divided. Let's prove them wrong." His speech ignited a spark. Within weeks, Earth transformed. Factories once used to build weapons for human wars now churned out starships. Scientists worked around the clock, developing new technologies to close the gap between humanity and the Krill. And ordinary people volunteered by the thousands, ready to risk everything to defend their species. As the United Earth Alliance prepared for war, one thing became clear: the galaxy would soon learn why humans were different. The Krill thought they were untouchable, but they hadn't met humanity yet. Not really. Building a fleet to challenge the Krill was no small task. Humanity had only recently begun exploring space, and its technology paled in comparison to the advanced alien empire. But desperation fueled innovation. Engineers worked tirelessly, day and night, retrofitting old warships from Earth's past conflicts into something that could hold its own against the Krill. One of these engineers was Samantha Sam Carter, a brilliant woman with grease-streaked hands and a mind sharper than any blade. She spent most of her time in massive shipyards orbiting Earth, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the smell of molten metal. The UEA's plan relied heavily on two things: speed and surprise. They couldn't match the Krill ship for ship, so they focused on making their vessels faster and deadlier. Sam led a team tasked with upgrading engines and weapons systems. Her favorite project was an experimental plasma cannon designed to pierce Krill shields, a key weakness discovered after analyzing debris from earlier skirmishes. It wasn't perfect yet, but she knew it could turn the tide if they got it right. While Sam worked on the ships, pilots like Jake Thompson and Maria Lopez trained relentlessly. Both had come from different backgrounds. Jake was a former test pilot who loved pushing machines to their limits, while Maria had grown up dreaming of the stars after losing her family in one of Earth's many wars. Together, they became part of a new generation of warriors, learning how to fight in zero gravity and navigate asteroid fields. Their instructors pushed them hard, teaching them not just how to fly but how to survive. Despite the urgency, morale among the crew remained high. Everyone understood what was at stake. Stories of the Proxima Centauri massacre spread quickly, fueling a shared sense of purpose. In mess halls and bunk rooms, soldiers talked about why they joined the fight. Some wanted revenge. Others sought to protect their families. For Sam, it was personal. Her younger brother had been stationed on Proxima Centauri B when the Krill attacked. She hadn't heard from him since, and though she tried not to dwell on it, his face haunted her every time she worked late into the night. As weeks turned into months, rumors began circulating about a secret weapon called the Eclipse Cannon Asterisk. Officially, the UEA denied its existence, but whispers persisted. Some said it was a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot. Others claimed it was still years away from completion. Whatever the truth, the idea gave people hope. Hope that humanity might stand a chance against the seemingly unstoppable Krill. But building a fleet wasn't just about hardware and training. Supplies were another major hurdle. Factories churned out ammunition, food rations, and medical kits as fast as possible, but demand always seemed to outstrip supply. Volunteers poured in from across the globe, eager to contribute however they could. Farmers donated crops, teachers organized classes for soldiers' children, and even artists painted murals on the sides of ships to boost morale. Amid all this activity, Admiral Daniel Hayes kept a close eye on progress. He visited shipyards regularly, inspecting prototypes and speaking with workers. Though he rarely smiled, his presence inspired confidence. People trusted him to lead them through the coming storm. During one such visit, he stopped beside Sam as she tinkered with a prototype engine. "How's it coming?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. "It'll be ready," she replied without looking up. "Just give me a little more time." Hayes nodded, then added, "Time is something we don't have much of. But I trust you'll get it done." With that, he walked away, leaving Sam to her work. By the time the first wave of ships rolled off the assembly lines, humanity had transformed itself. What started as a fractured collection of nations had become a united force. Pilots climbed into cockpits with determination in their eyes. Engineers stood proudly beside their creations, knowing they'd given everything they had. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity wasn't afraid to fight, and it wouldn't stop until justice was served. The first real test came sooner than anyone expected. A small scouting party led by Captain Ryan Bennett was sent to patrol the edge of human-controlled space, tasked with gathering intelligence on Krill movements. Ryan was a cautious man by nature, always thinking 2 steps ahead. He knew the risks of venturing so close to enemy territory, but he also understood the importance of knowing what humanity was up against. His crew consisted of seasoned veterans and eager recruits, all packed tightly aboard a lightly armed frigate called the Stellar Hawk Asterisk. For days, they drifted silently through the void, scanning for any sign of Krill activity. The crew worked in shifts, their eyes glued to monitors as sensors swept the surrounding area. Tension filled the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew the Krill could appear at any moment, and no one wanted to be caught off guard. Then, on the 4th day, it happened. Sensors picked up faint energy signatures. 3 ships, moving fast. They were Krill. Ryan ordered the Stellar Hawk to drop out of view behind an asteroid field. The ship's engines went silent, and the crew held their breath as the Krill vessels passed nearby. Through the viewport, they could see the sleek, insect-like design of the enemy ships, their surfaces glinting ominously in the starlight. For a moment, it seemed like the humans might avoid detection. But then, without warning, one of the Krill ships veered sharply, its scanners locking onto the Stellar Hawk position. "Shields up," Ryan barked, his voice cutting through the tension. The crew scrambled to their stations as alarms blared throughout the ship. Before they could react, the Krill opened fire. Bright beams of energy lanced through space, striking the asteroid field and sending debris flying. The Stellar Hawk shook violently as it took evasive maneuvers, dodging blasts that tore through the void like lightning. "We're outnumbered," shouted Ensign Clara Hayes, Ryan's younger sister and the ship's communications officer. Her fingers flew across her console as she tried to call for reinforcements, but the Krill jammed their signals almost instantly. They were on their own. Ryan clenched his jaw, his mind racing. "We can't win this fight," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "But we can survive it." He ordered the crew to focus fire on one of the Krill ships, hoping to disable it before the others overwhelmed them. The Stellar Hawk guns roared to life, spitting plasma bolts at the nearest enemy vessel. The Krill shields flickered under the assault, but they held firm. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something unexpected happened. One of the Krill ships broke formation and turned on its ally, firing a barrage of missiles that crippled the third ship. The sudden betrayal confused both sides, giving the Stellar Hawk a chance to slip away. Ryan didn't waste the opportunity. "Full burn," he ordered, and the ship shot forward, leaving the Krill behind in a haze of confusion. Once they were safely out of range, Ryan allowed himself a moment to breathe. "What just happened?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Ryan admitted, staring at the sensor readings. "But we're not sticking around to find out." He ordered the crew to collect data from the damaged Krill drone floating nearby, a piece of wreckage left behind in the chaos. Back at HQ, scientists analyzed the drone and discovered a critical flaw in Krill shielding technology. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give humanity a fighting chance. As the Stellar Hawk limped back to Earth, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was far more dangerous and unpredictable than anyone had realized. The Krill weren't invincible, but they weren't alone either. And if humanity wanted to survive, it would need to be ready for anything. Back on Earth, the United Earth Alliance scrambled to make sense of what had happened. News of the Stellar Hawk encounter with the Krill spread quickly through military channels. The discovery of the flaw in Krill shielding was a rare piece of good news, but it did little to ease the growing tension among the leaders. Humanity's first direct clash with the Krill had ended in a narrow escape, and no one could ignore how close the scouting party had come to disaster. In a high-security briefing room, Admiral Daniel Hayes stood at the head of a long table, addressing a group of politicians, generals, and scientists. Holographic displays floated above the table, showing diagrams of the damaged Krill drone and the weak points identified by the research team. "This changes things," Hayes said, his voice steady but firm. "We now know their shields can be broken if we hit them hard enough, and in the right spots." But not everyone shared his optimism. Senator Laura Bennett leaned forward, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "Knowing their weakness is one thing," she said. "Exploiting it is another. We're still outnumbered and outgunned. What happens when they bring their full force against us? Can we really afford to throw lives away chasing victories we might not win?" Her words struck a nerve. Murmurs rippled through the room as others voiced similar concerns. Some argued that humanity should focus on defense, fortifying Earth and its colonies instead of launching risky offensives. Others insisted that waiting would only give the Krill more time to prepare. The debate grew heated, voices rising until it seemed like the meeting might dissolve into chaos. Hayes raised a hand, calling for silence. When the room settled, he spoke again. "I won't sugarcoat this," he said. "The odds aren't in our favor. But doing nothing isn't an option either. If we wait too long, they'll come for us. And when they do, we'll have no choice but to fight on their terms. Right now, we have a chance to strike back, to show them we're not afraid. That's worth the risk." His words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Senator Bennett nodded. "Fine," she said, her tone softening slightly. "But if we're going to do this, we need a plan, a real one, not just blind aggression." She glanced around the table, her gaze landing on Samantha Carter, who sat quietly near the back. "What about that weapon you've been working on? The Eclipse Cannon. Is it ready?" Sam shifted uncomfortably under the sudden attention. "Not yet," she admitted. "We're close, but there are still issues to work out. Even if we finish it in time, we'll need a way to get it close enough to use without losing the ship carrying it." Bennett frowned but didn't press further. Instead, she turned back to Hayes. "Then let's focus on what we can do. Strengthen our fleet, train our pilots harder, and find ways to exploit this new intel. But don't rush us into something reckless. We owe it to the people counting on us to be smart about this." As the meeting broke up, Hayes lingered behind, staring at the holograms of the Krill ships. He knew Bennett had a point. They couldn't afford mistakes. But he also felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Every delay meant more time for the Krill to regroup, more chances for them to strike again. Still, he trusted his instincts. Humanity wasn't ready for all-out war, but it was getting closer every day. Outside the briefing room, Sam found herself cornered by Lieutenant Eric Dawson, one of the engineers helping her with the Eclipse Cannon. Eric was a quiet man, often lost in thought, but today his expression was unusually serious. "We need to talk," he said, glancing over his shoulder to make sure no one was listening. "About what?" Sam asked, frowning. "I think someone's leaking information," Eric replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Details about our fleet movements. Someone's telling the Krill where to find us." Sam's blood ran cold. If Eric was right, it meant there was a traitor in their midst, and that changed everything. The United Earth Alliance launched its first major offensive with a mix of hope and dread. The target was a Krill supply depot orbiting a dying star, codenamed Eclipse Point. Intelligence suggested that the depot was a key hub for resupplying Krill fleets operating near human space. If they could destroy it, they would cripple the enemy's ability to wage war in the region and prove that humanity was more than just prey. Admiral Daniel Hayes personally oversaw the operation, his weathered face set in a mask of determination as he gave the final orders aboard the flagship Pioneer Dawn *. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Maria Lopes prepared their fighters, checking weapons systems and running through pre-flight checks one last time. Engineers had worked tirelessly to upgrade the fleet's targeting systems, ensuring they could exploit the weakness in Krill shielding discovered from the damaged drone. It was a risky plan, but it was all they had. As the fleet approached Eclipse Point, tension filled the air. The ships moved silently through the void, their engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. Ryan Bennett, now recovered from his earlier mission, commanded a small escort group tasked with drawing enemy fire, while the main force maneuvered into position. His voice crackled over the comms as he addressed his crew. "Stay sharp," he said. "If this goes sideways, we're the ones buying time for everyone else." When the UEA fleet emerged from behind a moon, the Krill were ready. Dozens of sleek alien ships turned to face them, their movements precise and coordinated. For a moment, there was silence, a heartbeat of calm before chaos erupted. Then the battle began. Bright beams of energy crisscrossed the darkness as both sides opened fire. The humans focused their attacks on the largest krill vessels, aiming for the weak points in their shields. Plasma cannons roared to life, sending bursts of superheated gas slamming into enemy hulls. One by one, the krill ships faltered, their defenses overwhelmed by concentrated firepower. Cheers broke out among the human pilots as they scored hit after hit. But victory came at a cost. The krill fought back fiercely, their weapons tearing through human ships with devastating efficiency. Explosions lit up the void as fighters disintegrated under enemy fire. Maria watched in horror as a nearby ship, the Liberty's Call Asterisk, was struck by a barrage of missiles, breaking apart in a blinding flash. Among the casualties was her close friend, Lieutenant Paul Carter, Samantha's younger brother. Grief surged through her, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. Jake noticed Maria's hesitation and called out to her over the comms. "Stay with me," he shouted. "We finish this together." His words snapped her back to reality, and she dove back into the fray, her fighter weaving through enemy fire with skill born of desperation. Meanwhile, Ryan's escort group took heavy damage as they lured krill reinforcements away from the main battle. Ships exploded around him, debris spinning wildly through space. Despite the odds, Ryan refused to retreat. "Keep pushing," he yelled to his crew. "We hold the line." Back aboard the Pioneer Dawn Admiral Hayes monitored the battle with grim satisfaction. The depot was within range. "Fire everything we've got," he ordered, his voice cutting through the noise. The fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles and plasma bolts, obliterating the supply depot in a massive explosion that lit up the dying star behind it. As the remaining krill ships withdrew, the humans regrouped, battered but victorious. They had proven they could fight and win. But as Maria stared at the wreckage drifting through space, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battles were yet to come. Back at the UEA headquarters, whispers of betrayal spread like wildfire. The fleet's victory at Eclipse Point had been hard-won, but it came with a price. Several ships had been lost, and many lives sacrificed. Worse still, suspicions lingered about how the krill seemed to anticipate some of their moves during the battle. Lieutenant Eric Dawson's earlier warning about a possible leak now felt chillingly relevant. Samantha Carter confronted Eric in a quiet corner of the engineering bay. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable as she studied him. "You said someone might be leaking information," she began, her tone low but firm. "Do you have proof?" Eric hesitated, his hands fidgeting nervously. "Not exactly," he admitted. "But think about it. How else would the krill know where to hit us? They didn't just stumble onto that depot by accident." Sam frowned, her mind racing. She wanted to believe Eric was wrong, wanted to trust everyone working on the project, but doubt gnawed at her. If there truly was a traitor, they couldn't afford to ignore it. "Who do you suspect?" she asked finally. "I don't know," Eric replied, shaking his head. "But whoever it is, they're probably close to the command staff. Someone who has access to classified intel." The conversation weighed heavily on Sam as she returned to work on the Eclipse cannon. Every glance from a colleague, every casual remark, suddenly felt suspicious. Was it one of the engineers, a pilot, or someone higher up? The uncertainty made her stomach churn. Meanwhile, Senator Laura Bennett pushed for stricter security measures across the alliance. During a heated council meeting, she argued that internal threats could be just as dangerous as external ones. "We've focused so much on fighting the krill that we've forgotten to look over our shoulders," she said, her voice sharp. "If we don't act now, we risk losing everything." Admiral Hayes listened quietly, his jaw tightening. He trusted his people, but he couldn't deny the logic behind Bennett's words. After the meeting, he ordered an internal investigation, assigning a small team to review communications logs and track down any irregularities. It was a delicate task. Accusing someone without evidence could destroy morale, but necessary if they hoped to root out the problem. As the days passed, tension simmered beneath the surface. Rumors swirled, pointing fingers at anyone who seemed even slightly out of place. Some accused Lieutenant Eric himself, claiming his secretive behavior made him a prime suspect. Others whispered about Ryan Bennett, whose recent heroics had earned him fame and jealousy. One evening, Sam found herself sitting alone in the mess hall, staring blankly at a half-eaten meal. Eric joined her unexpectedly, sliding into the seat across from her. "Still thinking about what I said?" he asked softly. She nodded. "It's hard not to," she admitted. "But accusing someone without proof, it feels wrong." Eric sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but we can't afford to wait until something worse happens." He paused, then added, "What if I told you I might have a lead?" Sam's eyes narrowed. "What kind of lead?" "I intercepted a transmission last night," Eric explained. "It was encrypted, but parts of it matched patterns we've seen in Krill comms. I traced it back to someone inside HQ." "Who?" Sam demanded, leaning forward. Eric hesitated, guilt flickering across his face. "Me," he confessed quietly. Before Sam could react, he continued, "But it's not what you think. The Krill, they've got my family, my wife and daughter. They're using them to force me to help them." For a long moment, Sam said nothing, her mind reeling. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "We'll figure this out," she said. "Together." Eric's confession hit Sam like a punch to the gut. She stared at him, her mind struggling to process what he'd just said. The man she'd worked beside for months, the man who had helped design the Eclipse cannon, was being forced to spy for the Krill. It wasn't betrayal, it was coercion. But that didn't make it any less dangerous. "Why are you telling me this now?" Sam asked finally, her voice low but sharp. "You could have kept quiet." "I couldn't," Eric replied, his hands trembling as he clasped them together. "I wanted to stop, but they threatened my family. If I don't keep sending them information, they'll kill them." His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, Sam saw the weight of guilt and fear etched into his face. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "We need to tell Admiral Hayes," she said firmly. "He can help." "No," Eric snapped, panic flashing in his eyes. "If the Krill find out I talked, they'll kill them for sure. Please, Sam, there has to be another way." Sam hesitated. She knew Eric was right. Going straight to Hayes would put his family in even greater danger. But keeping this secret wasn't an option either. Humanity couldn't afford to fight both the Krill and a hidden enemy within its own ranks. Finally, she nodded. "All right," she said, "but we're not doing this alone. We'll figure something out, but you need to trust me." Later that night, Sam met with Ryan Bennett in a secluded corner of the shipyard. She trusted Ryan. He was smart, resourceful, and fiercely loyal. After filling him in on Eric's situation, she laid out her plan. "We need to find his family," she explained. "If we can get them to safety, Eric can stop feeding intel to the Krill without risking their lives." Ryan frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's easier said than done. The Krill don't exactly leave hostages sitting around unguarded." "I know," Sam admitted, "but we might have a shot if we act fast. Eric says he knows roughly where they're being held, a prison station near the edge of Krill territory. If we send a small team in quietly, we might be able to pull it off." Ryan thought for a moment, then nodded. "I'm in," he said, "but we'll need backup. Maria and Jake are good under pressure. They can handle themselves in a tight spot." The mission came together quickly. Ryan handpicked a team consisting of himself, Maria Lopes, Jake Thompson, and 2 other trusted operatives. They loaded up a stealth frigate, equipping it with cloaking technology scavenged from a captured Krill drone. As they prepared to launch, Sam pulled Eric aside one last time. "You're staying here," she told him firmly. "If anyone finds out you're involved, it'll blow the whole operation. Stay quiet, and let us handle this." Eric opened his mouth to protest, but Sam cut him off. "This is your chance to make things right," she said. "Trust us." With that, the team set off, slipping past UEA patrols and heading deep into enemy territory. The journey was tense, every jump through hyperspace bringing them closer to danger. When they reached the prison station, they found it heavily guarded, just as Ryan had feared. But they also discovered something else, a massive structure nearby, bristling with weapons and surrounded by krill ships. "That must be the Void Harvester," Ryan muttered, staring at the readings on his console. "If the intel Eric gave us is right, that thing's capable of consuming entire stars. If we don't stop it." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what was at stake. Using stolen krill codes, the team infiltrated the prison station, moving cautiously through dimly lit corridors. They located Eric's family, a terrified woman and a young girl huddled in a cell, and freed them without raising alarms. But as they made their escape, disaster struck. An alarm blared, and krill guards swarmed the area. "Go," Ryan shouted, shoving Eric's wife and daughter toward the exit. "Get them to the ship." Maria and Jake stayed behind, laying down cover fire as Ryan fought his way through waves of enemies. Bullets ricocheted off walls, and explosions rocked the station, but they pressed on. By the time they reached the frigate, everyone was battered but alive. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Ryan glanced back at the Void Harvester one last time. "We'll deal with that later," he said grimly. For now, they had won a small victory and given Eric a chance to redeem himself. Back aboard the UEA flagship, Eric Dawson waited anxiously for news of the mission. Every second felt like an eternity as he paced the engineering bay, his mind replaying worst-case scenarios. What if the team didn't make it? What if the krill found out he had betrayed them? He knew the risks, not just for himself, but for Sam, Ryan, and everyone else involved. The guilt was crushing. When the stealth frigate finally returned, Eric nearly collapsed with relief. His wife, Sarah, and their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, stepped off the ship looking pale but unharmed. For a moment, Eric forgot everything else, the war, the krill, even his own fear, and ran to embrace them. Tears streamed down his face as he held them tightly, whispering apologies over and over again. But the reunion was short-lived. Admiral Daniel Hayes arrived soon after, his presence commanding immediate attention. "We need to talk," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Eric nodded, steeling himself for what was coming next. In a private briefing room, Hayes laid out the situation. "You've done something unforgivable, Lieutenant," he began, his voice cold but measured. "But you also gave us critical intel about the Void Harvester. That buys you some leniency, but not much." Eric swallowed hard, nodding. "I understand, sir. I'll take whatever punishment you see fit. Just, please protect my family." Hayes studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "You say you want redemption. Here's your chance. We can't destroy the Void Harvester from the outside. It's too heavily guarded. But someone on the inside could sabotage it, someone who knows how to navigate krill systems." Eric's stomach dropped. "You're asking me to go back?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," Hayes replied bluntly. "And this time, you won't come back. If you succeed, you'll save billions of lives, including those of your family. If you fail..." He let the sentence hang unfinished, but the implication was clear. For a moment, Eric couldn't speak. The thought of walking willingly into enemy territory was terrifying, but he also knew it was the only way to make things right. Slowly, he nodded. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steadier now. "Tell me what I need to do." The plan was simple but dangerous. Using forged credentials and a stolen krill shuttle, Eric would pose as a technician sent to repair a malfunction in the Void Harvester's core. Once inside, he would plant explosives at key points, ensuring the machine's destruction. It was a suicide mission. There was no way he could escape once the charges were set, but Eric accepted that. This was his chance to redeem himself, to prove he wasn't just a traitor. Before he left, Sam pulled him aside. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes softened when she looked at him. "You don't have to do this alone," she said quietly. "Let us help however we can." "I appreciate that," Eric replied, managing a faint smile. "But this is something I need to finish myself. Take care of them for me, okay?" Sam nodded, blinking back tears. "I promise." As Eric approached the Void Harvester, his heart pounded in his chest. The massive structure loomed ahead, its surface pulsing with ominous energy. Guards scanned his shuttle as he docked, but his forged papers held up under scrutiny. Inside, he moved quickly, memorizing schematics and planting the explosives exactly where they needed to be. By the time the Krill realized something was wrong, it was too late. Alarms blared throughout the station, and armed soldiers flooded the corridors. Eric fought back with everything he had, using tools and makeshift weapons to hold them off. But he knew he wouldn't last long. Finally, cornered and bleeding, Eric activated the detonator. "This is for my family," he whispered, pressing the button. A blinding explosion tore through the Void Harvester, consuming it in a fiery inferno. As the shockwave engulfed him, Eric closed his eyes, a sense of peace washing over him. Back aboard the UEA fleet, Sam watched the distant explosion through a viewport. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Goodbye, Eric." His sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The galaxy was safer because of him, and humanity owed him a debt it could never repay. The loss of the Void Harvester sent shockwaves through the Krill Dominion. For centuries, they had relied on fear and overwhelming force to maintain control over the galaxy. But now, their greatest weapon was gone, destroyed by a single human who had given his life to ensure its destruction. The news spread quickly among the UEA fleet, fueling a sense of hope that had been missing for so long. If one man could achieve such a victory, what could an entire united humanity accomplish? Admiral Daniel Hayes wasted no time capitalizing on the momentum. With Eric's sacrifice buying them precious time, he ordered the fleet to prepare for the final assault on the Krill homeworld. Intelligence reports suggested that the Dominion's leadership was in disarray, struggling to recover from the loss of both the Void Harvester and key supply lines. It was the perfect opportunity to strike, and this time, humanity intended to finish the job. As the fleet gathered near the edge of Krill territory, pilots like Jake Thompson and Maria Lopes prepared for what would likely be the most dangerous mission of their lives. They ran simulations, reviewed tactics, and made peace with the possibility that they might not return. The weight of the coming battle hung heavy over everyone, but there was also a shared determination. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival, freedom, and proving that humanity would no longer bow to tyranny. When the attack began, it was chaos. Hundreds of ships clashed in a swirling dance of fire and steel, filling the void with explosions and streaks of energy. The humans exploited every weakness they had uncovered, targeting Krill shields with precision strikes and using speed to outmaneuver their larger, slower opponents. Plasma cannons roared to life, tearing through enemy hulls, while fighter squadrons darted between massive cruisers, picking off vulnerable targets. Ryan Bennett led a daring charge into the heart of the Krill formation, drawing enemy fire away from the main fleet. His ship took heavy damage, alarms blaring as consoles sparked and smoke filled the air. "Hold together," he shouted to his crew, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We're not done yet." Meanwhile, aboard the flagship Pioneer Dawn Admiral Hayes coordinated the assault with grim focus. Every decision mattered now. There was no room for error. When the Eclipse cannon finally came online, he gave the order without hesitation. "Target their command center," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "End this." The cannon fired, sending a beam of unimaginable power slicing through space. It struck the Krill homeworld's orbital defenses, obliterating them in seconds. Without their shields, the planet itself became vulnerable, a fact that did not go unnoticed by the remaining Krill forces. Panic rippled through their ranks as they realized the tide had turned against them. Maria and Jake fought side by side, their fighters weaving through enemy fire with practiced skill. When a Krill cruiser locked onto Maria's ship, Jake swooped in, firing a volley of missiles that crippled the larger vessel. "You owe me one," he called over the comms, his tone light despite the danger. "Don't count on it," Maria shot back, grinning despite herself. Their banter was brief, but enough to remind them why they were fighting. For each other, for Earth, and for a future free of fear. By the time the battle ended, the Krill fleet lay in ruins. Their homeworld, once a symbol of dominance, now stood defenseless. Admiral Hayes addressed the survivors, his voice firm but tinged with sorrow. "Today, we proved that humanity will not be ruled by fear," he said. "But let this victory remind us of the cost of war and our responsibility to build a better future." As the fleet regrouped, battered but victorious, Sam Carter looked out at the stars. Eric's sacrifice weighed heavily on her mind, but so did the promise of peace. The galaxy had trembled when humans came to settle the score, and it would never forget. The war was over, but its scars ran deep. Humanity had won, a victory hard-fought and dearly paid for, but the cost lingered in every corner of the United Earth Alliance. Ships limped back to Earth's orbit, their hulls battered and scorched, their crews weary but alive. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Maria Lopez walked through the corridors of the Pioneer Dawn *, their faces a mix of pride and sorrow. They had fought for freedom, but they couldn't forget the friends and comrades left behind. Admiral Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The weight of command rested heavily on his shoulders, but there was also a quiet satisfaction. Humanity had proven itself, not just as survivors, but as protectors. Still, he knew the galaxy wouldn't stay peaceful forever. The Krill were defeated, but other threats might emerge. It was up to humanity to ensure it never faced such danger alone again. Senator Laura Bennett addressed the council one last time, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've shown the galaxy what we're capable of," she said. "But now we must show them something else: unity. If we want lasting peace, we can't go back to the way things were. We need to build bridges, with each other and with other species." Her words resonated deeply. In the weeks that followed, leaders from across Earth came together to form the Galactic Coalition, an alliance designed to foster cooperation among species and prevent future conflicts. Representatives from surviving civilizations reached out cautiously at first, unsure if humanity could be trusted. But as stories of Eric Dawson's sacrifice and the bravery of the UEA fleet spread, trust began to grow. Sam Carter played a key role in this new chapter. She led teams of engineers and scientists in sharing technology with allied species, helping them rebuild after years of oppression under the Krill. Her work wasn't easy. There were moments of frustration and doubt, but she found purpose in it. Each breakthrough reminded her of why Eric had given his life, so others could live free. Jake and Maria stayed close, their bond forged in battle stronger than ever. They chose to remain in service, training new pilots and passing on the lessons they'd learned. When asked about their plans for the future, Jake grinned. "We'll see where the stars take us," he said. Maria nodded, adding, "As long as we're flying together, I don't care where we end up." Back on Earth, families reunited amidst tears and laughter. Children who had grown up hearing stories of the Krill now looked to the sky with hope instead of fear. Memorials were built to honor those who had fallen, their names etched into stone as reminders of the price of freedom. Among them was Eric's name, placed prominently alongside others who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Admiral Hayes often visited these memorials, standing silently before the rows of names. He didn't speak much during these visits, but his presence said enough. Humanity had been tested, and it had risen to meet the challenge. The galaxy would remember what happened when humans came to settle the score, and it would remember the courage, determination, and unity that defined them. As the sun set over Earth, casting golden light across the planet, Sam found herself gazing upward. The stars seemed brighter now, full of possibility rather than danger. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as equals. And though challenges lay ahead, she knew they were ready to face them, together. In the silence of space, the message echoed softly. Humanity had fought for survival, but it would strive for peace. The galaxy trembled once, but now it watched and waited, curious to see what this resilient species would do next.